Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. It's a DFS strategy video for the 2021 John Deere Classic. Hopefully you had a chance to watch the DFS preview video I put out last night, as I'll be covering a lot of information from that video in this one without very much explanation. If you have not yet watched that video, I'll link it top right hand corner. That way you can drill down on it, watch that one first, and then come back to this one. As basically what I'll be doing in this video, narrowing down player pools based off of what we learned in that preview video. Of course, I'll still be going over the main things like the sweet spot score, the time pairings, trying to find our anchor times, and then from there go right into the anchor buckets. And of course, in preview videos, I cover the bucket system pretty in depth, so you will understand what that is by watching the preview video, and then you'll be able to transfer that knowledge over here and understand what I'm talking about. But either way, I'm not going to waste any more time. Timestamps are in the description below if you want to see the exact things that I'll be covering. You can also find them on YouTube's progress bar by hovering over them. Let's go ahead and get in this thing. I'm going to start here with the sweet spot rank. Now the rank is obviously based off of the score. So my number one golfer in the field is Daniel Berger. And really, I have the top 20 up here for you. You can't see the 20th golfer, but it is Kyle Stanley. Usually when I look at this, I want to highlight some golfers that kind of pop out. And my very first golfer I'm going to say is Johnny Vegas and Zach Johnson, really. They're kind of, Johnny Vegas is 8,000 flat. Zach Johnson's 8,500. These two golfers are ranked above several guys that are priced over them, including Patton Kizzire, Cameron Davis, Alex Noren, Troy Merritt, Lucas Glover, and Maverick McNeely. So those two golfers, I think, are really good value plays, especially for how the sweet spot score looks at them. And then we have Harold Varner III at 7,800. Harold Varner III kind of screwed me last week. It's hard for me to be excited to play him this week, but sometimes you just have to have a short memory. And I think this is a good spot to go back to HV3. He does have a top 10 at this tournament. And he hasn't really been playing the greatest of golf, so maybe this will be kind of that, I don't want to say breakthrough, but perhaps it might be. And really, I don't want to talk about any of the other guys. Kyle Stanley seems like a pretty decent value, especially when he's ranked above Seamus Power, who's at 9,000. So I do like Kyle Stanley, and we'll be talking a lot about Kyle Stanley later on in this video. But what this sweet spot score does, actually, hold on, pump the brakes. Let me show you what the sweet spot score actually entails. I'm going to hide some of these columns. I always like to show you everything that I have, but I'm going to hide those two columns because they are not necessary as we go forward. You know what? I'm going to hide this column because we will be using this. Let me show you what the sweet spot score is comprised of. I'm looking at their official World Golf ranking. We're looking at the grass stats. This week it's bent grass. I'm looking at course history, bogey avoidance, birdie or better percentage, looking at DraftKings average, recent form average, and scoring average, all for recent form stats. So that's within the last 8 weeks. That's what these numbers are looking at. I do divide this by 2, so it doesn't really pop out that much for golfers who have either 1 or 2 starts within the last 8 weeks. I don't want that to be an outlier. So I water it down a little bit. And then we look at season-long DraftKings average and scoring average. That creates the score. That score then creates the rank over here. And you can see there's a pretty big gap between Daniel Berger, who's ranked number 1, and Sungjae Im. This was the same thing last week with Bryson DeChambeau, but of course, the whole caddy issue, caddygate, if you want to call it that, I think threw him off his game a little bit. But I'm feeling pretty confident with Daniel Berger. With this sweet spot score, I like to use it to find our anchor lineups, or anchor tee times, I should say. I'm sorry. Anchor tee times. And in order to do that, first of all, I need to see which golfers kind of pop in their pairings together. How I do that is I look at scoring average, season-long scoring average, and I look at DraftKings season-long average. So the DraftKings points, and if they are, say, above DraftKings average, I will highlight them. Let's see if I can find it. This light green color right here. If their scoring average is better than field average, I'll highlight them with this yellow color. And if both of those stats are better than field average, I'll highlight them with this darker green. So if all 3 golfers are highlighted with whatever color, doesn't really matter to me anymore, I will then look at their sweet spot score, add them all together, and if it's under 100, they're part of the anchor tee times. Those are kind of our marquee groups. Anywhere between 100 and 200, it'll be a light green, like the one that you saw with the DraftKings average. And then anything greater than 200 is going to be yellow. So I can tell you right now, we can go through. There are some yellow and light green ones we'll talk about. I'm going to skip the dark green ones. Those are the marquee groups till after all of this. So as we go through, I'll talk about some of these other tee times that don't have all 3 highlighted, but I won't spend too much time on them. The first one is actually the first group out. Alex Noren, Luke List, and Jonathan Bird. So I believe Luke List withdrew last week prior to starting. I think it was prior to starting the tournament. I didn't actually take a look to see why he withdrew. If it was vertigo related, because he has been battling that in the past, I would caution yourself to play him because vertigo doesn't just really go away. I have a sister that has it, so I know it kind of stays with you. The fear always stays with you that it'll always come back. Now, being a professional athlete is a little bit different than what my sister does. So it's not a 1-for-1. I understand that. I also know another person that has had vertigo as well. He was able to shake it, and I never heard him complain about it after that. But he actually had it for a long time. Anyways, those are my 2 experiences with vertigo. I'm sure they're not all that similar. But if it was vertigo related, caution yourself from playing him. He might even withdraw before the start of the tournament. But he is in the first group with Alex Noren, and I like both of them together. I really like Alex Noren this week, and really both of them playing together, they might lift them up, and they might even lift up Jonathan Bird, who's been very streaky. I don't know if he's at the end of his prime. I know earlier in the year he had 1 good finish, and that was it. So who knows? Maybe the John Deere Classic, this is your weakest strength of field event, 124 now. It was 128, but I forgot to remove Eric Van Rooyen, who added 4 points to that score. 124, pretty low. In comparison, the Palmetto was 198. So the Palmetto, which was it did have world number 1 at the time, Dustin Johnson there. So he added 40 points to that score. If you take that away, I guess it was a similar field, if we want to think of it that way. But yeah, I like Alex Noren. Let's move on. None of these other groups really worth mentioning. This one seems pretty interesting, actually. Oh, no. Well, it would have been this one. Brian Harman, Dylan Fratelli, the defending champ, technically. They didn't play this tournament last year, but he did win it the year before. And Steve Stricker, who has won this tournament, I think, at least 3 times. There could be more, but I know you won it 3 times in a row. If you add their scores up, they should be part of the marquee group. And you know what? I think I want to. It's really interesting. Fratelli doesn't have better either DraftKings points or scoring average. He really doesn't. He's averaging 41.93 on the season for DraftKings points, and his scoring average is 71.76. The number I go by is kind of just the average, which is 71.50, so that's not, it's close, but not really. And then DraftKings average is 48.20. This should be a marquee group just because their score is under 100, their collective score, that is. I'm going to leave them like this, but really it's questionable. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to highlight the font in red. That just means for us it's questionable. The first group to talk about, though, we're saving this. Never mind. We'll save it. Sorry. Another interesting group here. Oh my God, is this under 100? No, it's 102. Just barely. But Aaron Wise, Keith Mitchell, and Jim Herman. Herman's doing his best to try to get that PIP money, which is kind of funny. I don't mind some of the stuff that he tweets. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to follow along. He just wants to be in the conversation. Hey, man, if he gets like 8th place, he's still getting a cut of the money, I think. I think that it works out that way. But Aaron Wise and Keith Mitchell. I really like Aaron Wise this week. So do a lot of people in the industry. I actually really like Keith Mitchell as well. Not too many people talking about him, but when you pair him up with Aaron Wise, I think it's pretty decent. I wonder if they're around the same age. 25, 29, not really, but closer than Jim Herman is. So maybe they'll have some fun things to talk about. Who knows? I like that group. Seems pretty solid. Let's see, Ches Reavy. I don't care about him. I don't want to talk about him. Yeah, that group kind of stinks. This group seems decent. Their score is just barely over 100. Harold Varner III, Doc Redman, and Robbie Shelton. Again, I think I'm going to tap into the well of HV3 and also Doc Redman. Both of them missed the cut last week. Most of my line, I didn't have a lot of HV3, but where I did have HV3 were in lineups that had higher entry fee, so higher stakes. And it was really down to him and Gary Woodland for a couple of my lineups that had they made the cut, I was looking really good to make a lot of money over the weekend. Unfortunately, they missed the cut, so it didn't work out that way. So I do have sour taste in my mouth for HV3 and Doc Redman, but I think I can go back to both of them because, what better place than the John Deere Classic to right a wrong, basically, to right the ship. And both of them, I think, can do it. And I believe they both have decent bentgrass stats. Yeah, they both have over 5% success rate inside the top 10. HV3 looks a little bit better this year and overall when it comes to bentgrass, so I don't mind Harold Varner III. One group to talk about is Scott Stallings, Camilo Villegas, and Will Gordon. I think really only because all three of them are highlighted here, but their collective score is over 200. So that's not all that great. I mean, Villegas has 0% top 10 finishes. And by the way, his career is fairly long. So having no finishes inside the top 10 at any bentgrass golf courses, that's kind of that's a concern. Will Gordon the same way. I don't know if he plays that many, but I'm probably going to take a pass. I do like Scott Stallings, but I don't think I care for the other guys. An interesting group here, Bo Hosler, Adam Schenk, and Peter Malnati. I really don't care for Peter Malnati, if I'm being honest, but Bo Hosler, this seems like a good fit for him. And Adam Schenk has been playing some decent golf as of late, so I don't mind Adam Schenk or Bo Hosler. I think altogether, like Peter Malnati can get really hot. And if he does, I think the rest of the group can catch on. He's very talkative. I think he is pretty friendly, where anyone else in the group might enjoy playing golf with him. And if they're all playing really well, it's going to be contagious. And I think they can feed off each other. So Adam Schenk and Bo Hosler, if you were thinking about playing those guys, I highly encourage you to do so. Scrolling down, we got our next group here. Kyle Stanley, Henrik Norlander, Aaron Baddeley. I would say sign me up for all three of them. Like, I do like all three of them. I really like Kyle Stanley. Henrik Norlander is kind of sneaky. Like, he can sneaky score well. I don't trust him all that much, but, I'm playing him, around 4%, maybe a little bit more. These percentages aren't fully accurate that I have here. These are my exposure percentages. I'll probably bump Aaron Baddeley up a little bit. But yeah, I like Kyle Stanley, and I think this is a pretty decent group for all three of them. We'll skip these marquee groups and see if we can find another group to talk about. This seems like a decent one. Oh, I was going to say I didn't highlight this one. Interesting. These are very close. I like Kadira, by the way. I'm skipping up a little bit because I saw this group of tee times here. I do like Kadira, and I like Scott Piercy, and I don't mind Hudson Swafford at all. I think together they're pretty decent, but that's all I'm going to say about them. And then Charles Howell III, my preliminary lineup building had a lot of CH3 around the lineup, so I think he actually might be a decent consideration. I don't think there's a problem there. I don't care for Greg Chalmers. Adam Long, sure, sign me up. Both of these guys, 32nd ranked and better on the SweetSpot score. Greg Chalmers is really the only reason this holds this group back from really me selecting them as a group to talk about. So I don't know if that's going to hurt them. I don't know if it's just going to do nothing or if it will benefit them. But Charles Howell III, Adam Long, I don't mind that group at all. And then Patton Kizzire, Nick Taylor, Ryan Armour. All three of them are basically better than the field average in, one or the other stat, or both, I suppose, with Patton Kizzire having both. I like Nick Taylor. Patton Kizzire, I don't mind. This group is just outside of that 100 barrier where they would be a marquee group. So, I think they're all pretty decent ball strikers, I want to say. Let's see. No, that wouldn't be true. Patton Kizzire's negative off the tee for the season, as is Ryan Armour. They're all good putters. So, hey, maybe this is an interesting thing to talk about, because if they are good putters and they all kind of heat up with their putter, when good putters see other good putters rolling the ball well, that tends to be a little contagious as well. So maybe they increase their putting, make some more birdies. Who knows? We'll see. And I believe that's it for the rest of the groups. There isn't, this is a weak field. There aren't many other golfers to talk about. Bill Haas, Kramer Hickok, Patrick Rogers, not terrible. But yeah, there really isn't anything else worth mentioning. So let's go ahead and get into our marquee groups. So basically, I'm just filtering out by the color. We obviously skip these ones. I'm going to highlight these every 3 so you can see who's in the group a little bit easier. I mean, seeing the lines across, I think, helps me see them, but I don't know how much it helps you guys. But what's interesting, so I didn't have this first group highlighted when I first did the, initial analysis of this. It was just the Sungjae group here. Sungjae, Cameron Davis, and Anirban Lahiri. They were the only morning group. The rest of them were your afternoon group, which this is the same as last week. And I don't know if it's because it's a weaker field or what have you, but it's really interesting to see 3 groups, that are pretty decently ranked in this field, regardless of what metric you use. Like if you look at the groups, you can see the golfers that are within them and see that, they're pretty decent. I don't know why they don't split it up 2 and 2, but hey, I don't think we get to know those answers. But either way, that's how it is for this week. Now, again, I did highlight this first one. The reason we look at marquee groups is I started this, I think, 6 weeks ago. I can't remember where I am with my number. I don't remember the tournament I started this at, but when I noticed it, I'm like, okay, let's keep it alive to see if it continues to follow that trend. And for the most part, it does. I think the PGA Championship had 8 groups to talk about, and 2 of them didn't produce a top 10 finisher or a top 20 finisher, but the other 6 did. And then there were a couple other tournaments where only 1 group didn't produce a top 10 or top 20 finisher. So obviously with the SweetSpot score and the bucket system, we're looking for top 10 finishers. If these marquee groups produce at least 1 top 10 finisher, or even a top 20 finisher from each of their groups, I think we can anchor some plays around them. And at least, this is what I've found out, you want at least 2 golfers. Pick any 2 golfers from any of these groups, but really select 1 from each pairing and put them together, anchor those 2 guys together. So for me, I really like Sungjae Im. I also like Daniel Berger. I like Sebastian Munoz. I like Russell Henley, Maverick McNeely. I don't mind Siwoo Kim, sorry. And I also really like Zach Johnson. So there are a lot of golfers that I wouldn't mind pairing up. And I think that's what I'm going to be doing, is trying to pair a lot of these guys up together that I just highlighted, and then try to select golfers outside of them. So, I mean, we can do this several different ways. We can hand build these lineups, or we can use an optimizer. And thankfully, I have both. So basically, what I would do is I'm gonna go with like a Sungjae. I'm gonna show you this lineup construction page. I'm gonna put a Sungjae here because obviously I know I want him. How about this? I'm gonna select all of these guys, the ones that I want to play: Sungjae, Berger, ZJ, Munoz, Kim, Henley, McNeely, and I don't mind playing Sepstraka. I think this is a good spot for him. I'm gonna come back here and just put them right there. So it shows you, lists them out, the ones that I like. And basically, I mean, we have 2 10K golfers, Sungjae and Daniel Berger. Russell Henley is a 9K golfer. So and let me put him up here. Move these guys up, and then I'm going to get rid of this one. I think this is pretty close. I think Siwoo is somewhere in the 9K range. I think. Either way, I think if we started this way, so if I went Sungjae here and say, let's see, how many golfers do we have? 8. So I'll bring them down 7. And basically what I can do is just grab each individual golfer and put it right with him, just like that. So Sungjae will be paired with those 2 golfers. And I can start my lineups from there and grab the other 4 golfers that I think I need. Likewise, I can start with Russell Henley and skip out on Sungjae Im. So I'm just going to go down 6 then. And basically do the exact same thing. So Berger, ZJ, I think I can just do these guys. So it works that way. And again, I can just build out lineups that way. And right now, I have 13 lineups started. So I think that it's not a terrible strategy. The same thing could be applied by using an optimizer and say, okay, obviously I want to lock in Daniel Berger and Russell Henley. We already talked about those guys, so let's lock them in. This is obviously using all the SweetSpot rankings and stuff, and it gives me a lineup. This is much faster. I can obviously save this, look at my lineups here, and we can see that, it saves there, and I can just easily upload this very quickly. So I could do it this way, and I probably will. I'll try to figure it out, make it a little easy on myself doing it that way, but just showing you guys how to do this. I mean, that's going to be the end of the marquee group, but somebody, I think Ryan, one of my followers, asked me, how do you create a spreadsheet like this? So let me go over that really quickly. Basically, all of these fields here, obviously, this is a DraftKings import, but you can see there's a formula in there. If I were to remove this formula, you're going to have these NAs show up. This is a multi-functioning formula spreadsheet. So obviously here I have a sum function in here of BF34 minus BD34. Actually, let me put it a different way. This column here, D32, if I scroll all the way over here and I look, let's see, right here, this is looking at, basically it's doing a VLOOKUP, and let's see, N2 to P, what is that? N2 to P. Okay, so it's grabbing whatever's in that column, and then it's looking at, you kind of have to have this VLOOKUP, where you have the name ID. You don't have to have the names here, but you need the salary that goes along with it. So that what that VLOOKUP is doing is it's grabbing basically the value that's in here, D32, and then it's looking to see what the price tag is here, and then it's pushing it right here. So actually, if we do D31, 7,600 SEP Straka, I mean, we can validate that pretty easy. SEP Straka's right here, $7,600. So that gets spit out right here. So when all 6 golfers kind of get uploaded, I'm doing a total count here. So it's a sum function once again. I'm also doing a count here, and I have this hard coded 50,000 for max salary. If you're doing like FanDuel, you put $60,000 in, and then the max count 6. So basically, on the salaries over here, it'd be BF30 minus BD30. If we're looking at BF30, that's right here. So it's 50,000 minus whatever's here. That gives us our remaining salary. And then here, what I have is, I do have a formula in here, but then we're going B31 divided by BG31 minus BE31. I know that's going to be confusing as heck, but basically, we're trying to find the numbers of how many golfers are left minus, or not minus, but divided into the salary we have left. And that will give us our average remaining salary. So that's my easy way to do this. It's a little complicating if you think about all of it together, but it's just a lot of nested functions or formulas that play into account. But basically, I'm recording everything over here, putting all the salaries here, adds up that total, and then it allows me to see what I have left and what I can select. It's really nice, but the only other thing that goes with that is if you, and put it this way, I could actually put in formulas here. Let me just see if this works. If I put like an if error, maybe I can still make this empty. Okay, perfect. So now it just goes empty. So now that I know that, I can just remove this and move on from there. Or I can make this just show up as 50,000. I think I can do that. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. I think I'll update that so you guys don't even need to do what I typically do, which is I put formulas in here. But I've gotten more advanced since I first started creating this spreadsheet, so I no longer need to do this. Okay, let's move on. Hopefully that helped you out, Ryan. If not, obviously, you can DM me again, asking me maybe for a more in-depth video, and I'll just create a one-off. Otherwise, other than that, hopefully, again, it worked out for you. But let's go ahead and open this back up to everybody. We already found kind of our marquee groups, our anchor plays. We could grab like Brian Harmon, and I like Brian Harmon and Steve Stricker. I could grab those guys, but they're not technically in my anchor tee times. So I'm just going to leave it as is. And let me sort by salary once again. And now we're going to go and look at our anchor buckets. So in order to find our anchor buckets, what I end up doing is, if I were to open this back up, I kind of already gave you the lowdown of what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to look at basically whenever there's at least one in these buckets for top 5 finishes. So every single year, what that means, every single year, the last week ones, which are missed cuts from last week, that's what constitutes a last week one at the John Deere Classic. We've seen at least one golfer every single year that I've recorded these stats finish inside the top 5. I used to do top 10, but I think top 5's a little bit stickier, like it's going to always happen, whereas some of my top 10s have been disappointing me in the past. But first we can look here, and then I'll open up and look at the top 10s for, you know, what has happened every single year there as well. So again, last week ones are 80 plus, which is missed cuts from last week. And I guess let me just go into the golfers and show you who those guys are. So last week ones, again, we are basically predicting we're going to find one golfer from here finish inside the top 5. Now, when we look at the group of golfers, there isn't much to be impressed by. It starts at $8,200, and then it goes right into the 7K range quickly, and we only have 16 golfers that are in the 7K range. The rest of them are in the 6K range. There are 39 golfers in that 6K range. Most of these guys are unplayable. I wouldn't waste your time with them. But you might find some of these golfers to be worthwhile. I forgot to mention this in the preview video, but this is where the bucket system kind of was birthed, was at the John Deere Classic. Trying to make sense of why Michael Kim won in 2018. Like when we look at 2018, Michael Kim, he had a missed cut the week before, which obviously we know is one of the anchor buckets, and he had a 71 finish before that. Like there wasn't really much going on with Michael Kim. How does Michael Kim win this tournament? Well, I can tell you right now, he was a part of a bucket that ended up being an anchor bucket. That's where basically, I wouldn't say the bucket system was born, because I was doing a lot of this information, kind of just trying to figure it out. But this gave me validation of saying there's no way else you're going to get on Michael Kim. So with that being said, that could actually apply for all these golfers. Actually, let me take a look. One more thing. Michael Kim was $6,900. Here's the one other thing I will say. If you watch the preview video, you know that the 6.4K and below golfers are no plays. We've never seen a top 10 or a top 5 finish from any of those golfers. It's only 2 years worth of data, so you know don't put all your eggs in that basket, but I'm kind of going to go with it. I'm not going to play anyone that's really below 6.5. And if I do, it's going to be very sparingly. But this is the same bucket where Michael Kim came through. So if there was a golfer that were like, yeah, there's no business, like this golfer has no business finishing inside the top 5, it might come from this bucket. And I really don't know who that would be, because a lot of these guys have shown life before. Maybe it's a Scott Harrington. Maybe it's a Rain Gibson, a DJ Trahan. You know, does DJ Trahan have any business being inside the top 10? Who knows? How about Grayson Murray? He could win this tournament because he's in one of the anchor buckets. That's why I bring up the buckets. It's really up to you guys. Do you want to take a risk on any of these guys down here in the 6K range? Or is this more a safe play for anyone that's 7K and above? For me, I don't like the buckets. Like, I don't like any of the golfers in here. So I can make the argument to say, play everyone at least once if you're making 100 lineups. But if I'm going to be logical here, I'm going to move a lot of my ownership to the likes of like Satoshi Kodaira. I also like Martin Laird, Scott Piercy, Sepp Straka, HV3, CH3, and Doc Redman. I think it's those 7 golfers for me. I'm very interested in like Mito Pereira and Ches Reavie, but they are speculative plays. There aren't really guys that I'm anchoring any of my lineups around. But yeah, the other guys though that I'd highlighted, those 7 that are highlighted on the screen now, I like these guys. Hopefully they do as well, because I'm going to probably be playing a lot of these guys. I'll be updating the ownerships, my exposure levels to incorporate more of these guys into them. The next anchor bucket would be recent form 1 golfers, which are 40 to 50. Let's put it this way. Over the last 8 weeks, their average finishing position is between 40 and 60. That would be our recent form 1 golfers. We see 1 inside the top 5 every given year, or every year for this tournament. We also see 2 inside the top 10 every single year. So let's take a look at our recent form 1s. Open this back up to everybody once again. Looking at recent form 1s, I bet you we find some decent golfers here. Yeah, so Sung J M is there, Cameron Davis, Russell Henley. These are all golfers that we like. I forget how many are actually in this bucket. 40 golfers total. And of those 40, 14 are 6K and less. So we actually have many more 7K to 10K golfers, 26 of them to be exact. Yeah. Sung J I like, Henley I like, Zach Johnson. There's Doc Redman. But of course then I kind of frightened and slipped, and there's Doug Gim. I like Johnny Vegas, Harold Varner III, Steve Stricker. I'm basically selecting everybody at this point. There's Satoshi Kodaira. I like him. I also will play some Nick Taylor. I think he's a solid play and worth a play. I don't mind taking some stabs with Patton Kizzire or Cameron Davis, but I'm not gonna live by that. Zach Johnson, Russell Henley, Sung J M, they're all in our anchor tee time pairings, but so is CT Pan. So it might be worth playing CT Pan. And really the 6K guys, I mean, to me, they're more of dart throws. So I do like Roger Sloan, but so does everybody. Sneaky here, I like Robert Streb a little bit here. I think he could play pretty decent. He's been solid in the 6K range. So I do like Robert Streb. And I think that's about it there. Our next group, or our next anchor bucket, would be the recent form 2s, which is that average finishing position between 60 and 80th place over the last 8 weeks. If we take a look at golfers there, see if we find some good ones again. Actually, I'm a little hesitant about this bucket as well. I don't really like Na that well, but he is in one of those anchor tee time pairings. He's an anchor bucket as well. This doesn't give him, this doesn't lock him into a top 10 finish. It just gives him a better chance. So maybe that's the reason we play Kevin Na. I like Siwoo Kim. I like Sebastian Munoz. I don't mind Richie Wierenski or Sepp Straka. There's Scott Piercy again. We've already mentioned his name. And really, that's probably it from 7K and above. I do like Martin Laird a little bit too. But yeah, I don't know. That might be it when it comes to our 7K and above golfers. We do have some success on bentgrass, like Matthew Neesmith isn't terrible on bentgrass. Kevin Na, probably one of the better ones in the field. Oh, so 6K and below, I do like some of these guys. I like RCB, Adam Schenk. I like Byung-Hun An. I think this is a good spot for him. We don't have many bentgrass golf courses, or in the summer months. He obviously does pretty decent on these bentgrass golf courses, so Benny Ann might be a decent pick. Vincent Whaley kind of, I don't know, it's cooled down a little bit from his little hot streak that he's had, but at $6,800, I think, he's worth the play. Anirban Lahiri, remember, he is in the bucket tee time pairings, or not bucket, I'm sorry, anchor tee time pairings. And I think that's probably it for me, but there are some interesting plays down here. And that's really going to round out the anchor buckets, but I told you we're going to open that up to top 10s to see if there's anything different. Yeah, let me select all and get rid of the zeros here. And it does open it up quite a bit. So we have many more course history. Actually, all course history buckets show up. That's it. I'm going to actually remove all the ones and greater to just the ones that we have not talked about. And you can see we have course history buckets here, and then last week too. And in fact, actually, there's a lot of projected golfers from these buckets showing up. So I imagine these guys will have a lot of these guys inside the top 10. So let's go ahead and talk about those guys as well. Last week twos, let's start there. Headed by Daniel Berger. Of course, last week twos are golfers who did not play last week. Daniel Berger, Brian Harmon, Russell Henley, Kevin Streelman. Those are all really good plays. They're minus Kevin Streelman. They're all in the marquee tee times. So those anchor tee time pairings. Again, we have Kevin Na. Now we bring in Aaron Wise, who I like quite a bit. Same with Zach Johnson. Kind of like Vegas here. Stricker. Mitchell's an interesting play. We have CT Pan once again. And really, it's probably going to be it. Yeah, the rest of these guys don't look that great when it comes to who they are and the other buckets they are in. So really, I highlighted 11 golfers. I don't think that's terrible. If we're making 100 lineups, if we put them, at the relative ownerships that they should be at, I don't mind pairing some of these guys up together. In fact, let's see, how many do I have projected? 3. So I think 3 will finish inside the top 10. It's possible. Well, let's put it this way. It's possible those 3 could be these guys right here. And you can only pair 2 of them up together. But it is possible that maybe 2 guys in the 7K range, or maybe 1 in the 7, 1 in the 6, and then someone up here, 9K and above, might do it as well. And then you could play all of them. So I'd say play somewhere between 2 to 3 golfers from this bucket. And really, you have a lot of good choices. I selected 11 of them, so hopefully 2 or 3 of those 11 golfers finish inside the top 10. And then I look smart. I look like a genius. And then it's all the course history buckets. It looks like 1, 2, 3, and 4. And course history 1 has 4 as the projected amount. Everyone else kind of has 1, maybe a little less. So let's take a look at our course history 1 golfers first. Probably just going to try to cruise through this as quick as possible. Headed by Davis, Kevin Streelman, Aaron Wise, McNeely, like those guys. Stanley, HV3 show up once again. I like them. I do like Norlander and Piercy. Adam Schenk is right there. There's Robert Streb once again. Adam Long we talked about. I mean, I don't mind playing the likes of Troy Merritt or Lucas Glover as well. And I really don't mind playing Reeve, Stallings, or Rogers. Again, that's everybody, but I'm just showing you my comfort levels of playing some of these guys. I just selected all the ones I liked and then just showed you, I would play these guys as well. But either way, my ownership levels, my exposure levels, I should say, are probably pretty even amongst a lot of these guys. I don't really have one tell over another. I really like Stanley. I think he's a very easy play, or a very easy golfer to build our lineups around. I also don't mind. I don't mind McNeely or Wise. I'm building a lot of my lineups around them as well. Those two golfers. Probably going to pass on Cameron Davis and hesitant on Kevin Streelman, despite his perceived low ownership that will be in these contests. Let's look at our course history. Now again, course history ones, I'm projecting around 4, so really you could select up to 4, but you got to be careful because, you know, we've seen at least one, but that means one of these years there was only one golfer that finished inside the top 10 from this bucket. And these are, or I'm sorry, we're here. Or course history ones. Yeah. Either way, it's still one. And none of them have showed him inside the top 5. So if we're looking at, you know, value plays, I don't think a lot of our 9K golfers are really valuable if they don't finish inside the top 5. But, you know, we can have optimal lineups with one of the 10K guys at 6th or 7th place. It happens all the time. So we don't have to look at salary that way. I mean, we can still look at value that way, but either way, I do like some of these guys, and I don't mind playing them. Just kind of giving you, you know, that information. Let's look at course history 2 golfers. Those are the guys that have finished, that have an average finishing position between 1 and 2. So this might be, or not 1 to 2, 1 to 20. This might be pretty easy to pick. Min is 1, max is 4, projecting around 1.78. So let's take a look at who these guys are. Daniel Berger, Russell Henley, Zach Johnson, Keith Mitchell's there, Roger Sloan, we all like. So this is an easy bucket to choose from. And we think at least one is going to finish inside the top 10. I really don't mind starting a lot of my lineups, Daniel Berger or Russell Henley. And I don't mind pairing those guys up together either. Do I think this bucket is going to finish inside the top 10? Yeah. There are at least 3 guys that are in the anchor tee time pairings, the marquee groups, the quote-unquote marquee groups. And then one of those, Dylan Fratelli, is kind of in that not sure what to do with because he's the guy that doesn't have a better scoring average or DK average than field average from his group. But the other 2 guys do. So either way, decent group here. I think we can find one. Our recent form, or I mean, our course history 3s, if I take a look here, would be those that don't have course history. Is that true? Course history 3s? Yeah, did not play. So these are golfers that have never played here before. Huge disparity here at the top. Alex Noren, $9,300, has never played here before. Decent on bent grass golf courses. Pretty easy to go to him when we look at this bucket. We are looking at least 1, a max of 3. We are projecting around 1.93. We have seen 2 inside the top 5 before, but there is a 0 showing here for top 5s, and that's okay because Alex Noren is the only guy 8K and above. The rest of the other guys are below 7K, and you have some high quality golfers. So if we were to take a look at the official World Golf Ranking, you know, Alex Noren, 9,300. Mito Pereira, if you played DraftKings or listened to anything last week, he was one of those Corn Ferry guys, the 3-win promotion, 3 wins and you're automatically in the PGA Tour. So that's where he came from. Tom Lewis, his official World Golf Ranking at one point in time was 60th, I believe, or below 60, because he was in the WGC St. Jude last year, I want to say, and finished 2nd. So Tom Lewis might be heating up. You know, obviously he entered that tournament last year on his merits. He obviously has to do well enough to get invited back. So perhaps this is where he heats up. Who knows? Matthew Neesmith. We have a bunch of guys that are ranked 300 or better here. But the guys that actually add a point to the strength of field, let's just highlight those guys. So that would be Harry Higgs, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, Byung-Hun An. I can take away Mito Pereira. So it's these 6 golfers: Alex Noren, Tom Lewis, Matthew Neesmith, Harry Higgs, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, and Byung-Hun An. Now, that doesn't mean you should only select these guys, because the rest of these guys aren't so terrible. Like Joseph Bramlett, I think, is a decent play. So is Vincent Whaley. And it kind of gets a little bit sketchier from there. I don't mind Will Gordon, but I'm not going to put any trust into him. And Bo Hogue, I don't mind at all either. I don't know a lot about the guy, but I could play him. Either way, we're looking for at least one of these guys. For me, it's going to be Noren. You know, my exposure level right now is at 20%. I think I'm just going to leave it there. It could go as high as 25%, but that's about it. So 1 in every 4 lineups I'd probably build them in. But we'll see. I don't think I'll actually go there. I do like at 20, and then the rest of the guys kind of even exposures, like 6%, around 6%. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking there. And then the last bucket are recent or course history 4s. And that would be guys who actually average a missed cut every single year. We're looking at one of these guys finishing inside the top 10. We do have less this year than on average, but we're still projecting one around 1.4. So I think we could see a golfer from here. Siwoo Kim shows up. Doug Yim, Satoshi Kodaira. Those 3 golfers alone, I like the chances of this bucket improving. So yeah, I don't mind that. Hank Lebioda, Kramer Hickok. I don't mind these guys, but I don't have that much trust in them either. So they could be speculative plays. And then it's all 6K golfers and below. And honestly, I couldn't care less for most of these guys. I'm going to play some Cam Champ. He has been looking awful as of late, but again, this is the John Deere Classic, very weak field. This could be something he could win. I do like JJ Spawn as well, but I've also heard throughout the industry, so do a lot of other people. But 6K range, we're seeing sub 10% ownership, I'm sure, on him, which is totally fine. You can win a GPP doing that, owning him. And Aaron Baddeley, I don't mind a little bit, primarily because he's in one of those groups that could do well together. And that's going to really be the end of the anchor buckets. You know, we kind of had the anchor buckets, looking at all the top 5s, where we've seen at least in that bucket inside the top 5 every single year since I've recorded data, which goes back to 2013. So then I added the top 10. You know, got rid of those top 5s and looked at top 10. That's going to be a little bit more watered down. Can't really trust that that much, but you know, you saw I explained everything that I just obviously did, which I don't think. I mean, I've done that in the past, but over the last couple strategy videos, I haven't really been doing that. So you guys kind of have an idea of basically the types of players to play. Now, I gave you a list or a rundown basically of all the buckets that I think are going to hit this week, and the golfers that are in them. So hopefully you had a good idea of who you'd want to choose. And if you pair that up with the preview video where we went over grass stats, went through some of those buckets as well, at least explained what most of those buckets were, at least the top 3 buckets of each one, you got a good idea of who you might select, who you might like based off those buckets. It's pretty simple. I mean, this is a very low strength of field event. Actually, I shouldn't say it's going to be simple. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because with the strength of field, like I've been toying around with adding the points that go towards the strength of field towards the buckets. So basically what I would do is just add another column around here. Like if I were to insert something, say right here, this right here would add up all of the quote unquote points that go towards, you know, golfers in that bucket, and just see how much, you know, actually show up. But that is kind of a narrow way of thinking, or a narrow way of calculating. Maybe I add up all the SweetSpot ranks, and obviously the lower the rank, the better, but who knows? I don't know if that's where I want to go with that either. If you guys have a suggestion, let me know, because I'm more than willing to listen to see what you think is best. But from here, I think what I want to do now, I'm going to bring this up because I did this last week. I went over all of my max exposures, like all of my favorite golfers of who I'm going to expose, or that I'm going to play. So these are my top 4 golfers: Daniel Berger, Sung J M, Russell Henley, and Alex Noren. Seamus Power was actually lower, and then I went through all the buckets, looked at all the ownership, like the max ownerships, and that's basically what I have highlighted in this column, which, let me explain really quickly, is a calculation of this number here divided by everything else in that bucket. Let me actually open it up to everybody. So course history 2, that was right here. So it's this. Okay, so it's, all right, we're looking at this value compared to the rest of the values in the course history buckets, and then it gives me a percentage. So this makes up X amount of percentage points for this entire bucket. From there, I multiply that by 600. It gives me a max ownership because there's 600 positions available in 100 lineup builds. So that's, to me, it makes logical sense, but I'll tell you right now, when I went through this, it didn't work nearly as well as it did last week. And last week was my own concoction of formulas, which really made no sense. Some of those formulas had over like 900% like total exposure. If I go and I, highlight everybody that's in this last week, it's going to equal 600. Actually, I got to open this up. So if I add up everybody in this bucket, it's going to equal 600 flat. And you can't see it, but the little formula down here in the bottom right hand corner gives me 600. But if you want to add it up, you're more than welcome to. Either way, so it gives me a perfect 600. Well, there's issues with that because some golfers are in some of these lower buckets. And if let's say a last week 1 is also a course history 6, not even that. Let's do something worse. It's a recent form 5. So actually a last week 1, which I think with recent form being this bad, these two numbers together don't really work in like they don't coincide together. So 215 ownership points. I can't apply that to every golfer that's in this bucket because then these other buckets down here where I have max ownerships, it'll exceed. So long story short, I wasn't able to do, max ownerships or max exposures all that well. This is just a rough idea of what I'm going to do. These are my top 20 golfers and their exposures, who I'm going to be playing. If this helps you out, great. If it doesn't, so be it. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but I think it's very close to what I want to do. So with this, I might as well leave this up and we can build some lineups together. I have built some lineups up here already. So it's just how I feel or my comfort level when it comes to the golfers I want in my lineups. But we can start here. We already know that these are some of our anchor lineups and our anchor buckets. They're also part of our anchor tee time pairings. Actually, this is what this is, anchor tee time pairings. But anyways, let's go through and take a look at who we can select. So if we went with our anchor buckets, we know it's last year or last week 2s, I believe, right? Here, let me just get rid of this and we can look at all of them. So yeah, we can look at last week 2s. Actually, it was last week 1s. My bad. So last week 1s, these are guys who missed the cut, I believe. Last week? Yep. And it's showing me, projecting 4 inside the top 10. I don't know if I can actually get there, but at least 1 max of 5. I think that's how I'm looking at it, or maybe a max of 4. So minimum of 1, maximum of 4 of golfers who missed the cut. I mean, we have 56 in that bucket this year. We usually see 55. I like Doc Redman, so why don't we just go ahead, throw him in a lineup right away. So we'll put Doc Redman there. Let's see, and Harold Varner III. Why don't we just put those two guys who broke my heart last week together? Now this gives me $6,700 left. I don't care for that, so actually let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of this completely. We're going to move down a little bit. Rafa Cabrera, perfect. Great add-on. for this group. I'll throw them over here. 1 to 4. I think I could go along with either Scott Piercy or Sepp Straka. Now, Sepp Straka is a part of one of those marquee groups. I don't know if I want to put another one up here. I think I'll just leave it as is. I don't mind putting Harold Varner III here. And right there, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to grab any more than 2 from that bucket. But how about we take a look at last week? 2s. We want at least 1 from this range. And I bet you we probably already have some of the guys. So Daniel Berger, he's already in that lineup. So, oh, no. Sung J M, Russell Henley. Never mind. Russell Henley is, though. Okay. So Russell Henley, he checks that checkbox. And I don't think I need to select anyone anymore. Well, 1 to 3. That's kind of my... How about 1 to 2? We'll make this... So I can grab 2. We can grab a second golfer. But who is that going to be? Adam Schenk here? Nope. No one really that I care down here. Keith Mitchell? Sure. So we already have 7,300. We're leaving 7,300 on the table. Not on the table, but of left to pick. And I mean, I just went through the last week golfers. I didn't really have to, but that's where we are. Let's go with the course history 1 golfer. Maybe we already have a couple of them in our lineup. We'll take a look. It does not look like it. Oh, Harold Varner III is there. So yes, we do. Kyle Stanley is right there. I like Kyle Stanley. So when we look at the summary, we want somewhere between 1 to 4. 1 to 3. I think 1 to 3 would be fine. If I can find someone at 7,300 or less that I like, I mean, okay, there's Adam Schenk. I don't mind putting Adam Schenk together. I like this group. I'm leaving $400 on the table. I think it's fine. But that's just an idea of how to build lineups using the bucket system. And that's kind of what I will be doing. I do like this lineup, so I'm going to go ahead and add it right here. Get rid of this one. Or, I mean, I could use the optimizer. Let's delete all the lineups. And obviously, we do have our locks in here. How about this? Daniel Berger's fine. Let's not do Russell Henley. Who should we pair up together? So Daniel Berger and Zach Johnson. Let's do that. Let's do a Daniel Berger, Zach Johnson lineup. And let's go 1 10K, 1 9K, 1 8, 2 7s. And then leave it open to whatever the optimizer wants to select from there. So let's see what that'll spit us out. Wow. Daniel Berger, Russell Henley, Zach Johnson, Jim Herman, Martin Laird, and Adam Long. That's an interesting lineup. I don't care for Jim Herman. Like, I think what I'm going to do is just go and X him out. And rerun the optimizer just to see what it'll select. Okay, I'm okay with this. DB, Aaron Wise, Zach Johnson, Ches Reavie, Martin Laird, and Robert Streb. I do like Robert Streb. I don't mind Martin Laird. I think these are veterans that can get the job done, make the cut. Same goes with Ches Reavie. I like this lineup quite a bit. So it's another way to build lineups. Whatever you're comfortable doing, I think is, obviously the best way to do it. And when it comes to strategies, I mean, that's kind of it. These are my top lineups. I showed you what kind of the top optimizer lineup was at. I can go ahead and get rid of this and show you what the top lineup is using a 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 lineup. And it's Daniel Berger, Aaron Wise, Johnny Vegas, Harold Varner III, Nick Taylor, and Robert Streb. So that's using all $50,000 up. That's not terrible. And I think with that, I'm going to leave the video there. We got it done under an hour, which is, it feels like a world record from previous videos. But I know most of you guys like that long form conversation, and so do I. So I think this is a good reprieve. I mean, it's the John Deere Classic. Well, what else is there really to talk about? But I think that's it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.